Welcome to Unfiltered Veterinary Discussions. I'm Kelly Baltzell.
Your beard looks so
Oh my
nice.
gosh, Kelly, you've
Yeah,
really filled in.
nice change, Kelly.
Well, it's amazing what we can do here in the state of Minnesota because the Mayo Clinic is here. Um, and for those of you who don't know Kelly, Kelly is on vacation this week. She
Yay.
is traveling Ireland, if I'm not incorrect, with her family. And so we are going to do our best to misrepresent her and do our best with Unfiltered Veterinary Discussions. You can find us at our website. You can find us on all of the podcast platforms. Know, like, and trust us, share us, abuse us, give us feedback. And I'd like to welcome our good friends Jenny and Beth and David with the requisite wave. And we've kind of come up with a topic entitled The State of the Union. For those of you getting a time frame, it is April 1st, 2026, in case you don't watch this until next year or listen to it until next year. And we thought it would be a good time to put a finger on the pulse of where things are. Many of us have been at major meetings around the country in the first quarter of the year. Some of us went on vacations at times too, and just kind of get a feeling of where things are. And I'm going to go to small town New Hampshire, Deerfield, and I'm going to say, Jenny, what's your pulse feeling like in at this point after Q1 2026?
So, um, yeah, we are very rural. And I will say that economically, we're doing well. I haven't seen a lot of tapering off of like care for animals due to financial constraints. Maybe we're having a little bit more discussions, but people are still able to come up with a way to make it work as far as like emergency care and things like that. I will say that there is a lot more talk about economic uncertainty. I'm noticing that clients are a little bit more reactive, like they seem like they're just on edge, but I think that's the population in general. I don't think that's here. And I can say that New Hampshire is one of the most like expensive states to live in. So for the most part, if you live here, you probably have some income. Um, but we're still seeing a lot of adoptions. We're still seeing a lot of growth with regards to, people getting in, adopting more animals and getting more animals. We're still breeding horses. Was that a raise the
I
roof?
wanted
Was
to raise my hand. I didn't want to interrupt because you were on a flow. And for new listeners, they may not realize that you have a mixed animal practice as well. Is everything you're mentioning, is that also on the large animal side?
Yeah, I will say what I have seen and it has become a problem is the loss of a lot of large animal clinicians. Maine, which is, it takes us about an hour to get to Maine. They lost, I think, three vets, not lost, but that retired. One, I think, became the state vet who did livestock. So now we're in horses. So now we're
You're
having
having
a
to
lot of issues with people
expand your
having,
territory?
well, we're not licensed in Maine. So we're really stuck. And and it's really not financially worth it. Maine is actually when we moved to Deerfield, we used to live closer to the seacoast and we were actually licensed in Maine. And I was like, oh hey, we moved our this was 20 years ago or whatever. We moved to a new town. We want to update his license. And they were like, oh, you have to come and take a test and da 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 da. And I said, okay, we're not going to go there that much for this. I'm not playing. But that's become a real issue. We've had a lot of the older generation large animal vets retire. So we have picked up a lot of new large animal, like new barns, new large animal clients. We have that are trucking in with their
I
pigs, with
wondered
their
if they were
goats.
hauling in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah, I was gonna
will.
ask that too, if people are like coming over the border
They
themselves.
will. We had somebody call about a goat, and it was they actually called Tufts first, which is down in Massachusetts. So it goes, if you don't know geography, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. And Tufts told them to come to us. Listen, there are people who do not know people who live in New England do not know the states of New England. Like, they're like, New York is part of New England. No, No, it's not. But we do have a lot of people who will trailer in with us to see their pigs, basically pigs, goats, and stuff like that. But like cattle, they can't really get that on the trailer. So we're really struggling. And we took 2 calls this morning for horse people that are just so far out of our range. We already travel over an hour to some
Yeah.
bars. And with gas prices, how much do we expand that?
I don't want to hear about gas prices.
I
I'm
know
down
you
in
don't,
California. I
because
don't
I
want to hear
just
about
heard there
gas
was
prices.
Yeah.
like
Um,
over $8. Yes.
it is interesting and it reflects on an issue that maybe we'll hit on or not, but workforce is not necessarily an issue within just in the practice, but it's also in the fact that we have a need for mixed animal practitioners and food animal practitioners, equine, and we're not necessarily fulfilling the needs in some of the more rural communities through the veterinary schools. And so I think some of what you're seeing is you
Yeah.
see an attrition of the veterinarians, but not a replacement. And
Correct.
so as a result, you're the only one who has a pulse within an hour. And so they will have to drive an hour to get to you. And we saw some of this during the pandemic as well, where people were going further distances to get to exotic veterinarians, even in urban settings. So you're benefiting on one hand the workforce issues, but it's probably putting some additional pressure on you to be able to deliver.
Oh, it is. And the problem is emergency situations. When they get into trouble, if it's a serious laceration, can you even get that horse on a trailer? Is it safe to get that horse on a trailer? You really run into those types of serious or dystocias. If we, have a goat dystocia, obviously the faster you get that baby out, the better. But if they live 2 hours away, we probably are going to lose the kids, and hopefully we can save the mom. So it is that's where I'm really seeing a strain. And I will say, Peter, you're 100% right. Finding a mixed animal vet, it took us, well, it's been since 2000. We just hired one in 2025. And we went through a
Yeah.
couple, but they're not trained. They don't know, maybe they know horses, but they don't know anything about livestock or small animal. And it really is, it's its own problem. And luckily this new grad is working out great. Yay. But it's been a while getting there, and it's been a strain on our clients because we're booking out months in advance. It's been a strain on our team because we just never stop. And so it definitely is. I mean, it is a good problem to have. I don't want to say that because I know there are practices out there that are struggling to get people in the door. So I don't want to sound like I'm, complaining.
It's
Just
still a problem though.
it
Yeah.
is. It is.
Now, I want to challenge you on one thing or test you on one thing. The
Mm.
first thing you said is that you're doing well economically. And I want to know whether that is based upon data or just the balance in your checkbook, or do you actually have something to substantiate that? Because my friend, the veterinary practice appraiser and transaction person, is going to say, well, I have a lot of practices say they're doing well economically. So where are you making that assessment from? Because
I am making that assessment from comparing my P&L to the last couple of years for the first quarter. Thank you. You guys know I don't like data, but I know how to do it. So yes, I am comparing it. I will say that I don't think that we've seen the growth but we're also not taking new small animal clients. So
Yeah.
it's really tricky for me to be able to see that growth. I mean, at this point, there's only so many hours in a day. My doctors can only do so much. We're so booked out. So I don't really, other than rate increasing prices, I don't expect a huge difference in our profit. But we're at least steady or up some.
Yeah,
So
when you're running at capacity, and I have a lot of clients that they're maxed, and yeah, numbers of invoices are flat or down, in part because they're shifting to online store, and those don't go through the software, but in part they can't find associates. And when you're running at max capacity, yeah, you can work smarter, not harder. Veterinary E-Myth by a certain author I know, did it with Michael Gerber. Um, and utilize like the vet partner team utilization guide, trying to do more with the same assets. But when you're at capacity, as so many are, you are at capacity, whether it's large animal, mixed, small animal. I do a lot of work with the AABP, the bovine practitioners, which membership is really mixed animal. It's not just
Right.
cows, food lots, food animal, cow calf type work. And they are very proactive in reaching out to recent grads and new grads and the grant project I'm a part of the faculty that teaches with. A lot of these folks participating are doing startups in areas that don't have large animal. Um, but they're also forward looking and, best time to plan your exits when you're planning your entrance. And they're saying, am I going to be able to find an associate? I think, that finding an associate of any type is probably the number one, continues to be, but first quarter, number one issue is doctor staffing. Head in the sand, we don't have a shortage. Now, geographically, across most states, we have a problem. And
Yeah,
that's the limiting variable that I see more than anything going on.
we'll hold the thought on that because I call it a maldistribution.
Yeah, I think that's a
And
better term.
so let's move south along the coast and approximately an hour outside of Philadelphia. Don't know whether to call that a suburb or just a lost city.
I
Is
guess
Beth.
suburb.
And so Beth, you've got a companion animal practice.
Yeah.
How are you holding out?
I'm very similar to Jenny on a small animal only basis, but we like comparing our profit and loss year over year, I would say that we are stable and we are doing okay, but we are suffering from what David was talking about. We're at max capacity. Like, I can't really grow a lot more because I really need another doctor. And in the past year, we had one doctor who was part-time basically leave to do just acupuncture, and she'll fill in for me, but she's not regularly on the schedule. And I had another doctor who was full-time go back to part-time and now is very part-time. So we're like essentially down a doctor, and we've just been making it work and just filling in where we can. And we really, I mean, at the end of the day, we just need another doctor. So, like, for where we are, like, our gross numbers are definitely down because we're down a doctor. They're not even down, they're like stable. But there hasn't been the growth that historically we have seen year over year. But I know why. Like, I'm not concerned by it because our practice is definitely stable in the financial realm, but we're not seeing a lot of growth because there's just only so many of us and only so many hours in a day. And we even went almost a full year without taking new clients because we just couldn't do it. And then the first quarter of this year, we did open up to take some just to make sure we were staying busy. We try to proactively do that because it's always a little slower this time of year. To speak to the clients too, I feel pretty similar to Jenny. I think there's a little bit more conversation around pricing, but that people are generally still doing the things. Like maybe they'll delay a non-emergent surgery for a month or two, but then do it so they can save up. Like I feel like a lot of our clients are still coming in for their annuals. They're still doing a lot of wellness blood work. Like we're still seeing the things. But maybe people are staggering it a little bit more, or they're just having the conversation more to plan.
Do you see more using third-party payment plans like Care Credit and starting to
Yes.
see that tick up? Yeah.
Yes, I was actually going to mention that. So we started using Cherry Pay, which I've actually been really happy with them. They've been pretty easy to work with, and they have really nice, like an application process that's pretty nice, and their percentages are pretty nice. They have like a whole slew of options for people. But we've had quite a few people that get into hot water with something that can't wait that have been using that, I would say, more for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You said your gross is about where it's fine. So I would assume then your profit is higher because you are short a doctor, but you're making just as much money.
Yeah,
I don't,
our costs have gone up too though, so
Okay.
I feel like
well, and
it's
if you're paying on
not,
production and the rest of the doctors absorb the missing production, then
yeah,
your costs are not going to go down.
Right.
yeah,
But I am seeing support staff going up, both
Yeah.
yes,
intentionally, both because wanting to pay a living wage. letting the
Yes.
CSR technician make a career out of that role. But also a lot of practices giving raises, which we've talked about, without also increasing your service fees.
Yeah.
And folks not thinking about that. Your costs are going up. You need to charge more, and the team should know it, but not every practice does it. So revenue's holding, but the fixed expenses,
Yes.
especially
And
on the staff side.
yeah, and we did do across the board cost of living adjustments in February for my whole team because we felt like just life is so expensive that some of them were kind of on the lower side that I just morally felt like they all needed a little bit of an increase. So some of our profits were absorbed by trying to take care of our team, but making sure that they can afford life because some of their
And one
salaries are, you know.
on that note, though, I'm going to preemptively jump in there because the folks listening, they're going to be, oh, gas is so expensive and a lot of our team is commuting. We should give a raise. No, you should not. Buy gas cards. Raises are
Hmm,
permanent. Giving out gas cards, you
that's
can
smart.
manage that and it's a one-time thing. So,
There are also probably some tax benefits to not having to pay payroll taxes, and you can
yeah.
hide them as an expense within your business. But I'm not an accountant, and I probably shouldn't be saying those things.
You can say it, it's okay. You're in a safe space.
So we've kind of
Nobody's
had a very
listening.
rural practice. We've kind of have a rural suburban practice. And so competition is different when you're in different environments. Um, I live in a rural, excuse me, in an urban suburban area. And it's a much different discussion when I've got 50 veterinarians in a 10-mile radius than
Yeah.
when you have, only 50 veterinarians in the state of New Hampshire. So,
I think it's a little more than that.
okay.
50.
Not much.
55, 55.
Right. Yeah, come on now.
So let's move a little bit west along the Pennsylvania Turnpike to State College, Pennsylvania, or
Yeah.
thereabouts, to David, who really has a finger on the pulse of the profession through his business and through the corporate Simmons. And what's your take on things? And we've probably talked about it, but what's your take on the way things stand in the first quarter of 2026,
Yeah.
transactionally with individual practices, et cetera?
Yeah, for my business, like y'all, I'm nearing capacity. I found another person to add, which is great, and I'm very thankful that the majority of our valuations are for management and planning purposes. Right before this call, had a results review call with a doctor, Ohio, I think. Um, she's not planning on selling for 10 years or more and purely for management and planning. And yes, her practice is only 4% profitable, right? And that's good practice, very large, multiple doctors. But if you're 4% profitable, your maximum discount for anyone is 4%. And she's got discounts that are higher, 10, 12%. That's a disconnect, certainly, that we see all too often. You set up your discount program without learning how profitable are you? How much can you afford to give away? Right? Discounts a top line and a bottom line thing. None of the in-between expenses changed. So I love those kinds of valuations because we can give that feedback and help people. And I have to say, at least on our clients, they are overall optimistic. I mean, they're still feeling good about their practices. And we're getting the 2025 data, and it was flat or up a little bit. They're not growing double digits like they did a few years ago. I am optimistic overall based on that. Now, granted, my clients are not a representative sample, right? It's only coming from 9 states. My clients also understand the benefit of evaluation for management and planning. So perhaps they're a little more aware as an owner of that, or they're exiting and doing the valuations for those purposes. But I am optimistic by nature. I see we have concerns, not just the maldistribution of doctors, but I think the profession is resetting that we hit COVID, things changed, some for the better, some not. Productivity went backwards, efficiency, team utilization are opportunities. Um, I think what we're experiencing now, like pre-COVID, we were just trucking right along. And then COVID, and that became an expectation in revenues, and we're resetting to trucking right along. So I think overall, some of the reset's not necessarily bad. It can be across the spectrum of care. Different practices can be impacted differently, and geography plays a role. Running at capacity plays a role. But I think for individual practice owners, kind of looking, the best data is your own data, right? Managing is about asking questions. So looking at your own data, can I do better? Where am I? What can I improve on? But, you know, everyone's schedule's so full, we go from fire to fire. We're not making time to do the hard work, right? Because it's hard. Choose your hard. Flashback. And we're not, many practice owners are not making that choice, or it's hard to do it. And
And to your point, David, we should be having that conversation, including our team. Where can we increase efficiency? Where can we increase utilization? Because when you are just trucking along and you got your blinders on and you're just going, we don't see where the inefficiencies are. And the people who are on the floor doing this, they're the ones who are going to be able to give us the best feedback. So including our team in those conversations, I think is so important, and making that time. Or, maybe your manager has one-on-ones. Hey, what do you think are the low-hanging fruit? What can we start picking at to make us be more efficient? Because maybe we think we're at capacity, but if we're not utilizing our team, are we? Maybe we can do more. So just that little thought.
yeah,
The
and
interest,
when
go
you're
ahead, Dave.
working so fast like that, I'll just do it. But your time would be better spent somewhere else. Pass that off to some, and are you creating that culture where your tech can, to the doctor, can say, hey, slap my wrist, you should be go doing some doctor stuff. Let me do this. Uh,
Well, it's a great concept, David, because but so many doctors, as you know, um, don't want to be told what to do. They are still in a command and control position. Many of them are my generation, your dad's generation. And we have a whole new generation of young people in our practices that are much more motivated by trust and inspire. And so we have to learn to ask for help or accept help when we're not, when even when we don't ask for it, instead of basically saying, I'll take it under advisement. How many practitioners have a I'll take it under advisement approach to things because they are the one in command and control and they don't like to be questioned? Those are your, yes, those are your generation that is now trying to sell, that have owned a job for 50 years, that don't have a business to sell. And, it's interesting, you were talking about that you're doing more of your management and planning assessments. What's trending with respect to hospital sales, whether it's private practice, corporate? Are you seeing anything within the Simmons Group that's reflecting on where things are trending? And I'll also throw not just acquisitions and corporate and private, but startups. Is there any trending that you're seeing within Simmons from that standpoint?
yeah, I think definitely we're busy transactionally.
Hmm.
So both corporate, we're selling more. We've got things under contract. I've got a stack of offers, both doctor to doctor and corporate. And the corporate side is active. I am starting to see a little two things on the corporate side. The trend is continuing, and the trends being there's more competition for practices, but corporate and competition brings pricing up. But corporations are also being more selective. We're having more say no thank you, either because of geography, challenges of hiring a doctor in that location, as well as size or little red flags that they're they've narrowed what they're seeking. And the terms have changed too. It hasn't been all cash for a while, and there's other details, and this owner having to stay longer. Doctor to doctor market, it's business as usual. Geography continues to be the main variable. You know, the future owners that are listening, if you can move, you're going to get a great practice. But so many cannot move, and that is shifting things to startups. And in talking with the veterinary lenders, they are doing, have been last year and this year, continuing more startup financing because the doctor can't find a practice in their area, so they're starting ones. And in some communities that are growing rapidly, that's okay. But in others, it's cutting the existing pie into smaller slices. And the risk thereby that you end up owning the job, best time to plan your exit, blah, blah, blah. Um, so yes, that is happening. It's a vibrant market. The veterinary lenders still 100% financing for practice and real estate. There's no money down. But
What's
I emphasize to folks, and you two would probably can comment. Well, all three of you, Peter, you are an owner as well. Ownership, I encourage it. I'm seeing the pendulum come back. There's more interest. I'm talking to a lot of VBMAs, but ownership is not for everyone. It it is a calling, and it can be financially rewarding. But I spoke with a doctor last week. I see all the money. I'm like, yeah, but that's not why you do it. Because that 2 a.m. wake up, oh, I got to fire so and so, and Carol's fighting with John, and this invoice is making the money is not going to sustain you when you're working on the business Saturday night instead of having date night with your sweetie and having to get up Sunday morning. So I
especially when your
love the
sweetie
fact
works for
private
you?
ownership is growing, but you gotta be realistic. Uh,
What's the status with the multipliers?
Fair market value has always been the same, but for 25 years that we've been doing that.
Right.
That does not change. The corporate multiples and corporate pricing came down from 4 or 5 years ago where it was, I was selling practices at 18 to 22 times the bottom line. Now it's come down the last couple of years. I think it's fairly stable in that 8 to 12. If you are a bigger practice, meaning more doctors, higher revenues, more stability. Yeah, I have one now that's a 14, but that's a seven doctor practice.
So what you're saying is Beth and I should sell now.
No, no, thank you for that.
Okay.
Because the corporations are telling owners that. They're saying, oh, you better sell now because these high prices are going to go away. No, excuse me. They are not going away. When you have greater demand and a smaller supply, prices don't go down. Now, there's other variables, and we could do a whole session on corporate should I, but I think not listening to them, and it continues to be when I talk to folks, if they think of anything when it comes time to corporate, date many, marry one. That is more important now than it's ever been. And not falling for the first one that whispers sweet nothings with lots of zeros. And, and not falling for the one because your classmate said, I sold to X, you should do it. Your classmate's getting paid if they buy your practice. So, yeah, anecdotes and recommendations, be careful. There's a lot more details in the corporate transactions, and that is a trend first quarter continuing from last year.
I'm
It's
going to
much more
digress. I'm
complex.
going to digress for just a minute. Did anybody see the article in Vin News about the efforts by private equity to um, sell quote unquote shares to associates as a golden handcuff, or essentially they're offering um, equity in the
Yep.
transaction, which theoretically will keep them, and especially if there's a non-compete in that state. And then when they go to uh, get return on those shares, they find that the shares aren't quite worth what they were. There was a very revealing article in
Sneaky.
some of the efforts to put some associates into very uncomfortable contractual situations and lock them in. Did you guys see those articles?
I
No,
didn't see the
but
articles, but I'm
not
experiencing
super
it.
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, the equity, I always recommend make the decision as if the equity did not exist because you have no guarantee it's going to have any value, both as an owner, as well as I have several groups that are providing equity. Retention bonuses can be cash or equity. Mama has control. Mama can influence the income statement. Mama can make that equity worth nothing. And in talking with a couple colleagues on the legal side, there are currently issues, owners that had equity and it was being bought back, and the corporate group manipulated the income statement so the equity has no value.
That is sneaky.
It
That's
is
shitty
because and it's
and shitty.
obvious. It was
That is
done
really shitty. Like,
intentionally.
God.
I
Yeah.
think that's why my mother said mother is only half a word. My mother said that. I don't,
Mm.
so anyhow, read the article on Vin News. It's very, very revealing from that
And
standpoint.
now, having said the negative, we gotta recognize I have other clients that had the equity and got back, and the equity grew substantially. But it's shares. It's
Yeah.
how do you make $1 million in the stock market? Start with two. Now, yeah,
They say the
That's
same thing about blackjack. You just keep doubling your bet and eventually, you
you'll
win,
break even.
you break even, right? All right, so let's move completely across to the other
Out
coast.
to the other country known as,
Yeah, yeah, the People's Republic of California. And but I've spent a good portion of the first quarter in airplanes and in conferences and multiple time zones. It's been interesting. There were two words that came out of the big business, the big corporate, the big conferences. They both start with A, affordability and AI.
Mhm.
I think there's a sensitivity to consumer affordability because the newspapers have been running with it and consumer complaints are higher, especially in the urban suburban areas. There's many of us who are no longer own hospitals that are now customers of veterinarians that find it hard to breathe when we bring our pets in for services either at ER or general practices from that standpoint. Um, we were talking about $900 cat neuters, and I'm not sure the average pet owner can afford a $900 cat neuter. Um, as David's cat walks across
Great
the
timing.
screen
He's
and
like, what
shows
did
He
you.
you
gets
say?
neutered. It didn't cost 900 though.
Um, so affordability, and then of course AI, and where AI may fit into efficiency, effectiveness, productivity, et cetera. So we're in a very interesting. I want to call it an inflection point. I want to call it a period of uncertainty. Um, I think we're feeling okay because we're still making 3%, but is 3% okay? And if you go back to 2019, pre-pandemic, we were probably making 5 to 10 on average, which included cost of living increases to our fees and everything else. We weren't getting as much pushback. I think we are living in a very uncertain economic environment, and some of you, well, all of us probably can remember 2008 to 2012 in some capacity.
Yeah.
But the impact in rural New Hampshire versus suburban Pennsylvania versus California, I mean, we're at 6.13 a gallon in gas. And fortunately, I have an electric car, and Sharon's car is a hybrid. But that's the reason we have it. So it changes everything. It changes the dynamics of different things. And if Jenny would filling her truck at 6.13 a gallon, she ain't going to Maine. She
Nope.
basically, isn't going to go more than 3 miles because it's how many gallons per mile is it when you've got a mobile vehicle. So I think we're in a very interesting situation. And I think consumers, and I'm going to talk consumers mainly on the suburban, urban, are expecting more. I think the value proposition
Hmm.
has escalated. And I think our ability to morph into that and deliver, we have not met the value proposition of increasing demand on consumers. They want a greater return on that $95 office call. And they want it not just in the office, but they want it continuously from the time they come in to the time that they come back in. And I don't think that we got so busy during the pandemic that we lost a lot of relationships. And I think at this point in time, even though Beth may be a little reticent to add new clients because of business, and same thing with Jenny, I think the most important thing that we need to emphasize, David, is it's about relationships now and strengthening that relationships and lifetime value of a
Yeah.
pet and not just being transactional. Transactional is what we associate with corporations. Relationships is what you associate with the Viking and Jenny in Deerfield and Beth and her team in Pekaski. And I think that's what consumers are looking for. And that's what the complaints that we see on Reddit, and that's the complaints that we see on other things. But I'm not sure we are doing a great job in meeting the value proposition of clients. And I think those practices that are thriving in the face of economic uncertainty have gone above and beyond. And those practices that have continued to do what they've always done, also known as insanity, are trying to figure out why things aren't working. So beat me up on
Well,
that.
and just to hammer that home, I mean, some of this is nothing new. You know, 20, 30 years ago, it was a doctor-centric practice. Now it's a client-centric practice. But there's tools out there that can naturally improve that relationship. And it's stuff we've been talking about all the time. Having a distributive leadership, collaborative, utilizing your entire team, that changes the client relationship, which is better business, right? Good business, good medicine. The other tool works on both sides. I'm a huge fan of medical record dictation, whether it's AI or not, because it's forcing associates to verbalize the patient exam, which is teaching the client there's medicine happening, which is building the relationship. And on the business side, helping the doctor manage time so they're not charting so much so they can practice more medicine. I mean, it's all interconnected, but you have to take the time to look at that and work on it. And I remember when I started speaking back in 2002, right, that clients can't judge your medicine. They judge the experience. And as long as the experience is greater than the invoice, money's not an issue. Money's an awareness. But are you the advocate for the pet's health or the client's wallet? I used to teach a class with AHA a long time ago with Dr. Karen Smith. Loved that class. And we do a little bit of role play and, getting a doctor, the team to be comfortable with silence. You present the treatment plan and the money, and they're quiet. The client's quiet, and the reaction is, oh, but we don't have to do that. We can do. No, they're thinking. Count to 10. Be quiet. Let them think. They're thinking about how am I going to pay for this and when am I going to pay what when. You know,
I
the,
think your point about it being client centric, though, I would even challenge that and say it should be team centric. So if you're utilizing your team and you are spending time working on the culture, like Peter, to what you said, it's building relationships. So if your culture is about building relationships, if your culture is about taking care of your team so that they can take care of your clients, I really look at my job is to take care of the team. Simon's job is to take care of the patients, and our team is what helps us really build those relationships with the clients. I've got clients who come in who can only see one single technician for a Librela injection. I can do a Librela injection, but it doesn't matter. My dog really likes Amber, so Amber needs to be the one to do it. And so we have to look ahead at Amber's schedule when we schedule it so that we know when she's going to be there. And that's because my clients have a relationship with not just the doctors, but with the teams. And I
Mm.
think there are a lot of doctors out there that want to be the superhero, that want to be when I walk into that exam room, the angels sing and the lights come down on me. And they kind of, it's that ego, right? A little halo. I know that I know what's holding up your halo. But the same thing as holding up my husband's. But I think that when you allow that spotlight to be shared on your whole team, it affects those relationships with your clients. It affects your patient outcomes. It affects the bottom line. And so I say we need to be a team centric and focus on our team. And if we take care of our team, they take care of our clients and our patients, and all of it kind of comes from there. But if we're so busy focusing on ourselves and putting our heads down and just trucking along, we're missing out on that opportunity to take the time to grow the team, empower the team, and grow those relationships with our team, with our clients, with our patients.
It's funny. I mean, this is the State of the Union, right? End of the first quarter. But it continue so many of these sessions, it's about the relationship. It's about people. It's not about the nail, one of my all-time favorite YouTube videos. The and that's what we keep coming to. And yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty at the end of this quarter, and it's external. What makes our profession unique is it is about the relationships across the team, the relationship with the pet owner, relationship with the pet, the significance of the pet and the human animal bond. And there are challenges to it. If you're going to do it right, it's hard. Choose your hard. But what makes so many folks successful is they do choose to take it on and not wing it and do it intentionally. And those that are doing it intentionally, I think, have a better practice and are less concerned about the economy and fluctuations and life happening, changes. Uh,
Yeah, our practice's primary goal this year, because we always set goals as a practice and as a team, we come up with them, is customer experience. That's like our number one goal for
nice.
2026 is what can we do to make the customer experience better? Because I think all of our success hinges on those relationships with our clients and building trust and making sure that we're hitting the mark, having a good experience so that they want to come back, so they trust us to run that test, to do that surgery. That's all. I think, like Jenny was saying, it's, I like to call my employees my internal clients and then my regular clients my external clients, because I
Oh,
think it's
nice.
important that my employees are a part of the plan and they're
I
not
am so
just being like,
stealing that.
yeah, go ahead. Use it. I like it though because honestly, like they're such a part of this process, and I have the same thing as Jenny. I have some clients that will request specific nurses and follow their schedule to make sure that they see them, and I think that is so crucial to making it that it's not just about one person. It's not
Yeah.
just about the doctor. It has to be about the whole team and your experience from the time that the client picks up the phone to make the appointment or sends us a message in the app to when they walk in, they're greeted to through the appointment to the entire thing, start to finish. The doctor is really probably only like 25% involved in that entire process. And all of the other people are involved the other 75% of the time. And so often that part of it is ignored. So I wholeheartedly agree. I think customer experience is where it's at for 2026, and that you have to involve your entire team to be successful for sure.
And I will add that your clients are part of your team. And so
Yeah.
when I do a slide and I ask veterinarians who is on your team, client service, animal care, technician, assistant, bookkeeper, manager, et cetera, clients are on that team. And so if
Yeah.
you're truly team centric and clients are part of your team, then that's not a debate. My other comment, I have this going back many years in slides, maybe to when David started speaking. Did you start walking or speaking at around the same time? I'm
Yeah.
kidding. um, is who's your number one client? And your number one client is actually on your payroll because how you treat your team is how they will treat your clients. And so if you're giving your team a great experience, they will definitely reflect that back. And we see that in virtually every industry. We just haven't always learned it in ours. All right, so let's take a minute or two to wrap things up for our State of the Union. And we're going to go in reverse order from David. What's the crystal ball look like for 2026 in your eyes?
My ball is muddy, but
It was
I
not a
think,
magic 8 ball, David. It was a
yeah,
crystal ball.
It's shaking
I
it.
think, yeah, sure. I think 26 is going to be better than 25.
Okay.
I think for me and my team, but for most of my clients,
Beth?
almost all.
I'm going to reiterate customer experience because I think that that's where it's at for 26. And I think if that's one thing that you as a practice can choose to focus on, that it'll make a big difference for you.
Jenny?
As always, I'm going to say we have to focus on our team to increase all of these things. If we're looking at your bottom line, if we're looking at the client experience, if we're looking at, any of it, you have to focus on your team. And this is why you won't ever hear me say like staff or employees because it is a team. And Peter, to your point, we say this all the time to clients. We are part of a team with regards to your patient's care. If you tell them all of the things to do and they don't go home and do any of it, then that message didn't get through and the team's not functioning. So we have to focus on your team, have conversations with your team, find out what they need, find out their ideas, give them a chance and empower them to make those customer experiences that much better so that they don't have to come to you every time they come up with a great idea.
Good business, good team, or good business, good medicine, good team. Business supports the team, supports the pet health.
So I'm going to do my best Jack Palance from City Slickers. The one thing. The one thing. Oh, I have to answer the question, right?
Right?
Yeah,
It's your
yeah.
We're
turn.
waiting.
Okay.
Come
We
on,
need your one
Kelly.
thing. Your crystal
Trust.
ball.
Trust. I think all of this is dependent upon rebuilding a trust that I think we have compromised in some fashion, whether it's the way we treated people who are our clients, whether it's the way we've treated people who are our team. I think it's imperative that we rebuild the trusts that we have around us in so many different levels. And so I would suggest that the rest of the year is a lot of trust building. And you know where trust comes from? Communication. So on that mic drop,
Yeah,
I
mic
want to
drop.
thank all of our listeners and all of the team. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Balsell, and we will see you again on our next episode of Unfiltered Veterinary Discussions.
She's never going to let us do this without her again.
I don't blame her.